This might be the worst idea I've ever had, or the best. Um, Ben Shapiro, I have nothing against him. I don't agree with him on a lot of shit, or at least maybe I think I do. I don't know. I know that he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I really don't listen to a lot of his stuff. But if you've ever looked at some of the stuff he looks into, he's a big comic and sci-fi nerd. He's a huge nerd. I love it. I can't, I've watched his takes on like Justice League or Star Wars and everything, and it's entertaining. I don't know. I really don't know what to think about him and his politics. Really, I mean, some people outright hate someone. I don't know. He doesn't seem like a a mouthpiece for a network. Maybe he says stuff to get engagement, but he's his own person and he's like the owner of his show. So you can tune in or not. It's not like, uh, like a Tucker Carlson or something. Any one of the other mouthpieces for media. So at least you have that. I really don't give a shit. I don't care. I just thought it was funny that he started doing these little nerdy reviews of stuff, and I guess that he'll tell people to like turn off the podcast when he first started doing it because he was going to get like really nerdy, and so now he just does these as their own things, and I'm for it. Like I will listen to Ben Shapiro nerd out about comics and sci-fi, so it's fun. So I'm just gonna watch this and maybe I'll get a reaction from it. I don't know, but anyway, we're gonna start because he's gonna say something political at some point during this. I swear.
Ring.
All right. Just shoot
So
me
let's
now.
start off with the fact that this may be the best looking science fiction movie ever. So
It's-
Denis Villeneuve,
It sounds
the director,
good too.
he makes great looking products.
Is it?
Like
I
Blade Runner
enjoyed it.
2049 is a fantastic looking movie, and so is Arrival. And this movie is
Ben Shapiro talks so fucking fast. Good Lord. I don't know how this man operates.
just spectacular looking. Like from beginning to end, every shot is a piece of art. It was sort of described by a lot of folks as David Lean style shots of the desert. That's correct. I mean, it does look like Lawrence of Arabia, which makes sense because the plot is kind of like Lawrence of Arabia. But the color scheme is wonderful. Every shot is beautifully constructed. The special effects are great. You see every dollar on the screen. There's some movies where they cost $1 bajillion, and you're like, really? The sci-fi elements here look crappy. The computer generation looks awful. Here, everything just looks first rate. Looks great. And so just on a pure aesthetic level, it's a beautiful movie to watch. The acting is excellent across the board. The score is overwrought. I like Hans Zimmer, but Hans Zimmer basically just takes the Blade Runner 2049 score and just plops it right in the center with some very high-pitched singing and some throat singing from like Vikings.
The Sardaukar part,
the score is overdone because the movie is so weighty that you don't actually need to make the movie weightier.
Yeah, you don't
by
need
use
to.
of the score.
But
it's a very dark movie. Just visually, it's dark, but
Dune is a movie. I contend this that if you're blind, you could watch this and have a good time because that's how good the sound was. And maybe it is overwhelming. It might be. I don't know. In theater, it really got you in the setting. Like the sound was great.
It is also the story is
it is
very
heavy
dark.
though.
So you don't need the music to do that much work, and it's a little bit obtrusive. Not a bad score. It's just not my favorite Hans Zimmer score. But bottom line is that just as a piece of filmmaking, it's triumphant.
Yeah.
Spoilers abound. Essentially, the plot of the movie goes like this. You have House Atreides, which is led by Oscar Isaac. His son is Timothy Chalamet, and his concubine, who he never married, is Rebecca Ferguson. Right there on one side. On the other side, you have House Harkonnen, which is kind of a stand-in for the Soviets, kind of. So these two families are fighting over the planet Arrakis. The Harkonnen had dominance over the planet of Arrakis for some 80 years, and now that planet has been taken away from them and handed to House Atreides by the Emperor. So you never meet the Empire.
I thought Dune was all about oil in the Middle East because I remember reading it when 9/11 happened and seeing jihad in the book a whole lot. I'm rereading it now. I kind of stopped a little bit. I need to finish it, and getting more out of it since time, a lot of time has passed. And anyway,
You don't know who the emperor is. What you do know is that he is afraid of House Atreides gaining support and then presumably taking power. So what he does, he sort of puts them on Arrakis in order to generate what is the
Puts
most
them
valuable commodity in the
in a
universe, which
area
is
to
called
fail.
spice. Okay, now, spice is essentially the oil of the universe, right? It
Yep,
is
yep, yep.
this property that allows people to fly for interstellar periods of time. It is also a hallucinogen, and it's holy to the people who live on Arrakis, who are known as the Fremen. The idea here is that House Harkonnen is going to attack. The Empire is going to quietly support House Harkonnen, and the Atreides are going to go down. So there's a lot of ins and outs there. You meet a lot of different characters. You meet the Fremen leaders, one of whom is played by Javier Bardem, who's actually pretty terrific.
Yeah,
you have
he's
Jason
always
Momoa,
good.
who plays sort of the military go-between, who knows the Fremen and is able to act as a broker between the Fremen and House Atreides. The character's name is Duncan Idaho, which is, again, very sci-fi. Zendaya is in it, but doesn't say anything. She's just in a lot of sort of cutaway prophecy stuff.
She'll be
Meanwhile,
in
Oscar
more
Isaac
in the
is trying to
second.
train his son to take over for him in case of his death. And his son, of course, is sort of hesitant. He has these visions of what the future is going to be like, where he's the leader of this giant jihad. Like this is this huge rebellion against the Empire, and he's seen as a holy figure. Throughout the entire film, by the way, he's being seen as a potential holy figure by the Fremen because there have been all these prophecies about an outsider who's going to come to the planet and is going to lead just such a rebellion. He has certain powers because his mom is essentially a witch. She belongs to an order called the Bene Gesserit, and she's taught her son a few of the tricks of the Bene Gesserit so he can use essentially what is the old Jedi mind trick on people. He can speak to them and make them do what he wants to do by setting his voice to a certain timbre. He kind of fulfills the basic notion of what this messianic figure on the planet is supposed to be. Oscar Isaac's plan is that he's going to get to the planet and he's going to make common cause with the Fremen. They're going to allow him to mine the spice that they need, and he's going to basically leave them alone. And there's a pretty intense scene where there is a sand trawler that is picking up the spice and mining the spice, and it's attacked by one of the sandworms. And it's a pretty amazing scene. It's an amazing looking scene. House Harkonnen ends up attacking Arrakis. The giant, pretty spectacular looking battle ensues. The House of Atreides goes down. Oscar Isaac is captured. He is killed, but not before he poisons the head of House Harkonnen with poison that is hidden in his tooth. And meanwhile, Timothée Chalamet escapes to the desert.
He's summing up the movie. He's not even reviewing it.
He has this vision in the desert. And he is very upset about this because his mom made him a freak and he doesn't really want to take up this mantle. But he realizes that they have to survive, and so they wander out into the desert. And they are trying to find the Fremen. The biggest issue with the movie is that it ends kind of randomly. Now, we knew because it was called Dune Part 1 that there will be a Part 2. And so some people are saying, well, so what? It cut off in the middle. Like, why is that a big deal? The answer is that it's not a big deal that it cut off in the middle. The problem is that it cut off in the middle of a story beat, which is a...
So I'm going to contest this. We'll see what he says. But that scene at the end and that duel is a huge moment for Paul. And I don't think Ben has read the book then. Because even I knew that's a huge moment for him in the book. And, Dennis there was a quote where he's like, I made this movie for me. And as someone who read the book, even though I don't remember everything, I was wondering, okay, I get this, but does the audience? It's inferred big time. But there's, a lot the book explains. Hell, the back of the book has like a glossary. Anyway, I'll let him continue.
Very weird place to actually cut off the movie. So it feels strangely 15 minutes too long and 2.5 hours too short. If you're going to do the whole story, it's got to be probably 5 or 6 hours. But it made a great miniseries. If you're going to cut off the
Ben, it is a Sci-Fi Channel miniseries. I still have the DVDs because and it was okay. It was a pretty good miniseries. Dune was the shit for me, man. When I was long time ago. It's still pretty good. It is one of the best science fiction books ever, hands down. Like when people talk about, like for fantasy, people talk about The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time and Game of Thrones, or like, when I think of sci-fi, I think of this, specifically for books. I probably think Isaac Asimov, was it Philip K. Dick? I think of Dune, and I think of there's a couple people I think of honestly, but Dune has always been like up there.
movie in the middle, then really they should have cut off the movie maybe 20 minutes sooner. He starts to meet with the Fremen. They find the Fremen. They have this interaction where he has to beat one of the Fremen in a knife fight, and then the movie ends. Right after he meets Zendaya. The weird part about that is that should be the beginning of the second movie, right? My problem is not that there's a break in the movie. There's a break in Fellowship of the Ring also. The difference is that Fellowship of the Ring concludes at one point, and right before they start the next point, that's when the movie stops, right? It stops after Boromir is killed, and they're about to enter into the jagged
I'll give him
wasteland,
that.
and
I'll
they're
give him
about to meet
that.
Gollum, right? What would have been weird in Fellowship is if Frodo and Sam had left the riverbank, gone up, and met Gollum, and then as soon as they meet Gollum, that's when you stop the movie. That would be strange. Right? That's what Dune does. It would have been better to me if they're in the desert, he gets out, they're searching for the Fremen, but things are as desperate as they can be because his dad is dead and because Harkonnen has taken over the planet, and that's sort of where things break. Instead, they break, I think, in the wrong place. My problem isn't the break. My problem is that the break is in the wrong place. Alrighty, we'll get to more on Dune in just 1 second. First, let me remind you, I keep my home protected with Ring. I care a lot about home safety because, frankly, a lot of people know who I am. I want to make sure that my family...
Hold on 1 second. I thought a light broke. That was fucking weird. That happened a little while ago, if you saw me do like this. I'm skipping this. Sorry, Ben. I get it. People want to kill you.
And it is super easy to install it yourself. I am no tech whiz, but even I could install the Ring alarm myself. Protect your home anytime from anywhere with Ring Alarm. Go to ring.com/Ben for a special offer on a Ring Alarm security kit today. You can build a system that is right for your home, have it up and running in just minutes. That's ring.com/Ben. Again, ring.com/Ben. Not only does it allow me to keep tabs on what's going on in my house when I'm not at my house, also when I'm at my house and I
He
just
does
lose track
have
of
a
one of
good
the kids, I pop up
head
the
of
Ring
hair,
app and I
though.
can find
I fucking
exactly
hate him.
where they are. That is super useful. Ring.com/Ben. Again,
Goddamn, Ben.
ring.com/Ben. As for the feel of the film, it really does mirror the books. The book is cold sci-fi. There's some sci-fi books that are very warm and you really feel a lot for the characters. Fahrenheit 451 is one that comes to mind. This is not a book like that. It's very long. It's kind of technical. It's notoriously hard to adapt because it's so sprawling and it covers so much ground and it covers so much time. But, because Villeneuve is kind of a cold director, it works. It does work really, really well. So I will say that every time the Shai Hulud, which is this giant sandworm, approaches, the graphics are just astonishingly good. When it travels through the dunes, it's super cool because it's traveling through the dunes in the way that a missile would travel through waves. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's really neat looking. I think the movie is actually great. I think it's going to be hard to adjudicate whether the movie is great actually until you get a second part because you don't know what the conclusion of the movie looks like. It could be a complete disaster area, in which case the first half is great and the second half sucks. But if this completes in the way that the first half is done, I think it's going to be one of the great sci-fi epics of all time.
Yeah.
I will say, I feel pretty secure in his hands. Like as a director, when you're a moviegoer, there are certain directors where you just feel good walking into the theater because you know you're going to get something that is at least going to be really fascinating. And Villeneuve is one of those directors, right? To me, Nolan is the key director who's like that, but Villeneuve is clearly like that too. And he's really made his mark here. So I'm really excited, frankly, to see the second movie. I will say that I think it was such a bad release strategy to release it simultaneously on HBO Max. This is a big kind of industry insider thing right now, is whether you should have simultaneous release of these films on a streaming platform as well as in the theaters. This is not a movie you should be watching on your tiny little cell phone. You should really be seeing this on an IMAX.
The whole thing is, however, like anti-mask or whatever, if you're anti-vaxxer, you're probably an idiot. The whole thing with this, when it comes to Dune, is I saw in theaters, is worth seeing on the big screen. So I agree 100%.
Theater because the visuals are just spectacular. So the movie made 40 million domestic, 220 worldwide. This movie certainly would have opened at 80, 90 million bucks if this were not available on streaming. This would have been a massive opening. I think Hollywood is going to pretty quickly move away from the simultaneous streaming release with the theaters. I think the theaters are going
with
to
Batman.
come back in a pretty
Batman's
strong
not going
way.
to be streaming
If they
at the
don't,
same time.
it's going to be hard to get movies like this made. So my recommendation, go check this out in a theater. It's a huge movie. It looks beautiful. It's definitely worth the watch. Or maybe wait until part 2 comes out and then watch them back to back in a theater, which is definitely something that I would do. Alrighty, if you enjoyed our review, make sure to smash that like button. Make sure to subscribe as well. Leave us a comment in the comments section below. Let us know what other material you'd like me to review.
Fantastic little review. And I love watching like Red Letter Media and other just random people react to and review stuff. I really enjoyed Dune. I wish there was more of um, the Harkonnens. Fade wasn't in it. Was it Princess Aurelian or whatever her name is? She doesn't even, you don't feel her presence at all. But maybe they'll have that in the second film. It'd be neat if the second film was 3 hours. I think that's what they should do. I would like them to be able to. I mean, it's going to be a lot to cover. Um, I mean, they covered a lot in the movie though, so. And I think the Dune miniseries was like 5 or 6 hours, so they can definitely do it. It's just I feel like kind of miniseries works a little bit better per episode than like, hey, you're gonna sit here for 3 hours where they gotta kind of get to the point a little bit sooner. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna stop talking there. Interesting. That's all I'll say. He didn't say anything political. I think I did though. But whatever. All right. Peace out. Later.